And we are live. What's up, everybody? Welcome to VKH Live. I'm your host, Jeff DeWitz. With me, as always, will be Winona. She's on her way. She's running a little bit late, getting back from a trip, but she'll be here soon. But we are also joined by a very special guest. She's been on before, but everyone, please welcome back Lori from V-Star Entertainment.
V-Star Promotion there. Thank you.
Sorry, V-Star Promotions. I'm still waking up.
No problem. I'm still waking up too. But hello, everybody. I'm Lori from V-Star Promotion, and I'm looking forward to having a nice chat today.
Yes, definitely. For those people who aren't familiar, with your company, do you want to give them a quick rundown again, just in case there's anybody new this time?
Yeah, sure. So V-Star Promotion, we're still a relatively small company. We're mainly based in Osaka, Japan, and we work with a lot of mostly indie bands, so the new upcoming bands. And we also work with some bigger bands, but basically we help promote bands overseas to kind of make the bands themselves and their music and almost every aspect of Visual Kei more available to the Western audiences. Yes,
and they're very good at what they do. You're directly responsible, right, for all the subtitles on the Rides in ReVellion PVs and stuff like that, if I remember correctly.
That's us. We do the subtitling on the PVs. We've also done as Lena before they disbanded, and we're planning to do some more very soon in the future. Right.
So what are the bands that you guys are currently working with? If you want to go ahead and list them out for anyone who's a fan.
Main bands that we are like very heavily involved with are Rides in ReVellion, Vivarush, and Deviloof.
Awesome. Yeah. Which are all three of those are great bands, as I think a lot of the people that are going to be watching this know. But definitely check those bands out and check out V-Star Promotions if you haven't already. They have a Facebook page. Vivarush has a Facebook page, and Deviloof has a YouTube channel. Rides in ReVellion has a YouTube channel, and Rides in ReVellion has an English Twitter. Is that correct? I remember.
Yes, it's been a bit quiet recently, but they also have a Facebook, and we're planning to renew both of them very shortly.
Oh, okay, awesome, sweet. So, like I said, Winona will be joining us shortly, but what we're going to do tonight is basically go through like a list of indie bands that have been like noticeably active, over the last anywhere between 9 months to like a year, 2 years. And, I've kind of noticeably made some changes and just kind of, look at how they've improved and things like that. And, I think Winona's on. Winona, you there?
Okay.
Yo, what up?
Is this working?
Yep.
Cool. Great. I'm trying to treat it like a phone call.
Okay.
My headphones are in the bottom of the bus, and there's nothing I can do about that because, we're still moving. And
okay.
I won't be at my destination for at least another 20 minutes. So I'm just like, this sucks.
Yeah, that's fine. You sound fine.
Cool. Great.
Lori's on with us as well. So.
Hi, Lori.
Hello.
Yeah. So, I was just introducing everything. So the bands that like I picked, we're going to go through some of Lori's, some of the bands that Lori works with. And Winona, I know there were a couple on here that I picked that I think you would want to talk about as well. And then I picked a few as well. So it'll be interesting. we'll just basically like kind of talk about like how we feel about, you know, how each of the bands have made a progress. You know, the stream is called like Indie Band Progress Report. So, and if you guys in the chat have any suggestions for bands that you know, you want us to recap, or you want to give your opinions on the bands that we are recapping, feel free, fire away. You can also feel free to give a letter grade for each of the grades that we're going over, or for each of the bands that we're going over in the chat if you want to. I don't think we will, because like VKH doesn't really do scoring to begin with, but it'd be pretty funny to see that just in the chat. So we can go ahead and pull a Phil DeFranco and just jump right into it. And we'll go ahead and start with Kizu, because I know that's been really requested on the last couple live streams. So.
Yeah.
Lori, have you looked into, you know, Kizu at all? I know they're still kind of new.
A little bit. I'm not like intentionally knowledgeable about them, but they do seem to be doing very well from what I've seen, and in a reasonably short time period.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, they basically just got 3 singles out as of like literally like a week ago. So, but I know Winona and I we're pretty big fans. We constantly plug them on the podcast because like we wanted like a larger label to pick them up or something like that.
We really wanted them to sign and go major.
Yeah. We wanted Danger Crew to pick them up, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a great band to start with because like they're so new, but like they've really made a lot of progression, especially with this last single. Good grief! But
oh my gosh, not even just a single. That music video is just amazing.
Yeah, it's called. They just put out their 3rd single called Kizuato, and it's freaking intense. Like it's like they leaned pretty hard into the metalcore, and the vocalist Lime just like really let his vibrato like really soar. And this single is pretty distinct from the last single, which was also distinct from their first single. But this has been the biggest jump so far. So it's basically been like first single was like, I guess the first single we used as like our example for post punk in our Visual K Crash Course article, which is up now, by the way, if anybody hasn't seen it.
It's been like a week, but we finally got it up.
Yeah. So they went from that to like, I guess more like alternative metal kind of thing with the
Kawazu.
Second single with Kawazu. Thanks. And then and now it's like full on like symphonic metalcore kind of thing. But
it's hard to tell because they do so much with that song alone. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's like just metalcore in terms of like how Kyonosuke plays his drums and like the guitar riffs and stuff. But then it's just how Lime sings that just changes how the whole song is set up. I don't know how to explain it.
Right. Yeah. It's I was just reading the chat. Bren's not incredibly impressed by the new song, but he still likes Kizu. But I can see certain points where they're still working on getting it all together. You know, you could probably make the case that this looks like a lot like the last Duran Gray PV. But
that's what Jeff was saying before.
Yeah, like my analogy was, it was like if you folded a Rubik's, if you took like the Udafumi PV by Duran Gray, which is the one where they're in like the metal elevator kind of thing, and with all the what do you call those, like water spirit ladies, like the creepy all white like women that are like grabbing on them. So like if you took that PV and you folded it into a Rubik's cube and then start twisting and spinning it, that's the Kizuato PV. But nonetheless, it's still pretty impressive. But yeah, like it's been pretty amazing to follow this band in particular because it's such a baby band, but it like hit us out of nowhere. So, Lori, do you have any thoughts on Kizu from what you've like heard or seen so far of them?
Basically what you just said, it seems like they're trying out a lot of different styles, and that can be for several reasons. Either they're still trying to find the sound that fits them the best and the sound that they like the best. And also, another huge benefit of this is you get to reach a broader audience. So I personally like when bands don't let themselves be keyholed into one sound. And that's what they're very much avoiding. So I think I went a really weird way saying that, but yeah, the brand.
No, it makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah, it made total sense. So, yeah, overall, I'm pretty impressed by how much they've avoided just falling into. They could have made like just three different versions of their first single Oshima, and I think people would have been plenty happy. But they've been experimenting, so much. It's been pretty impressive. They've also been experimenting a lot in their B-sides too.
And it's good doing that, especially when you're new as a band, because if you kind of like get yourself into one style of music and you stick with that, when you start wanting to experiment and branch off, it can sometimes have more negative effects. So
right, yeah.
An example of that would be Deviloof. They're very known for their really heavy metal, and anytime they do experiment, which they're doing a lot recently, it does have a lot of positive reaction, but it also does have a fair amount of negative reaction. But doing it in the start of your career, you avoid that because nobody really has any certain expectation of what your music should be.
Right, yeah. No, I totally agree. And I do see a lot of bands like experimenting a lot and things like that. I actually see like it's like really polarized. They either experiment a lot or they like lock themselves into like a sound people are already familiar with. Do you kind of notice that?
Yeah, completely. And basically you kind of need to decide pretty early on what of those two types of bands you're going to be. If you're going to be an experimental that's always changing, or you're just going to be a solid band that focuses on one specific type. Because it's hard to make that flip mid-career.
Right, yeah.
In my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I agree, at least from what I've been able to observe so far. So, yeah, I think that about sums up our general thoughts on Kizu. They're definitely worth noting. They don't quite have enough, content out to really like thoroughly evaluate them. But I just think the main noteworthy thing is that they're experimenting in everything they're experimenting with. They seem to be like, kind of knocking it out of the park each time. So it'd be interesting to see where they go. But Lori, since you brought up Deviloof, I think this is a good time as any to we can transition into Deviloof actually. Do you want to kind of go over their progress as from your perspective? Since I know you've been working with them for like the whole time they've been together, pretty much.
Deviloof is quite a unique band, since 3 of the original members, being Keisuke, Daiki, and Ryuya, were originally members of a band called All Must Die, which was a deathcore band, completely not visual kei at all. And suddenly they just formed Deviloof, and I've known Keisuke for quite a few years. I've known him back from his metalcore days. And I myself, when I saw the PV for Ruin, I was like, what the fuck, bro? When did this happen? Like, I'm pretty sure I actually sent him that message, like, what? Since when are you visual kei? And honestly, Deviloof, I think because that level of just kind of pure heaviness is still relatively rare in the current visual kei scene, they took off really fast. But also because their music being what it is, it's also that type of music that is either loved, like very intensely loved, or hated.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I've seen that. Like, I've seen that a lot. I'm very careful in reading the fans' opinions of the bands I work with, because I like to give them, like, I like to tell them, this is the way the international fans see you. This is the way they see your music. And the Deviloof boys are completely fine with that too. And they're just striving to make the music that they want to make that people will also enjoy, for those who will enjoy it. They've changed a lot, with like a key change being the original guitarist Ruya leaving and Ray joining. Ruya, now in Deviloof, he's incredibly talented, and I think he'll continue to do well. But I personally really love the inclusion of Ray, and I think with his involvement, they're gonna keep on going strong, and they're improving a lot.
Yeah, that's that kind of sums up my general like impression from what I've seen as well. Because you know, we like, you know, we saw the Ruin PV like a few days after it came out, because it had already started to, like, you know, it was already starting to be shared around and stuff, and we were like, whoa. Huh?
It was pretty much blowing up.
Yeah, it was blowing up quite, you know. Yeah, there's no other way to describe it. But yeah, we had definitely like bookmarked them as like one worth keeping an eye on. But I definitely know what you mean about the fans, because I follow a few deathcore pages like on Facebook that are, you know, it's more for, you know, like the Western metal scene, but it's the deathcore fans are like, they're so intensely passionate, but then they're either that, or they're like also extremely like really picky, or even a little elitist about certain stuff. Like, they will just turn on bands sometimes. Like,
oh, for sure.
I don't know if you followed like what they did to or not what they did, but like what their reaction was to like Suicide Silence with their album.
When the newest, like when their last Deviloof, when their last album was being made, that was actually something that was discussed. They were wondering if they'd get a similar kind of reaction, because they knew they were also being quite experimental.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And at that time, the whole thing with Suicide Silence, that was still a pretty new news.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For people watching who aren't familiar with the deathcore scene, there's a really popular, or they were a really popular deathcore band called Suicide Silence that's been popular for years. They're like the Slipknot of deathcore, or you know, they were like the biggest band. And on their last album, they got very experimental to the point where most people wouldn't consider it to be deathcore. And long story short, it was through a combination of like, you know, people really, I didn't think it sounded very good personally, but like, you know, through people, you know, not accepting it very well, and also the general attitude towards, you know, them being very dismissive about how their fans were not enjoying it. It just really flopped. And it was like a big thing. Like their dislike bar got like nuked on like all their videos and stuff. It was a train wreck. So that's really interesting to know that like, you know, they were paying attention to that. And I think Deviloof ended up being like a fantastic example of you know, how to correctly experiment with deathcore, because you know, when their Devil's Proof, their first album came out, I was blown away by it. Like me and another reviewer on our team, James, like we were like obsessed with it, like when it came out. And you can tell me if you agree with this, but I think like the reason that we like it so much is that they're experimental in their like, you know, in their music, but in terms of like, I hear some like Visual K kind of song structures and things like that. But really, outside of the two PV tracks, the two PV tracks are like what I would consider to be the most experimental, like non-deathcore songs on there. The whole album as a whole strongly prioritizes deathcore. So I think that might be why they succeeded, where like Suicide Silence might have failed, is because Suicide Silence let the experimentation really completely ruin the core sound. But like I can pick like almost any song off of like Devil's Proof, and even the songs that are significant departures from deathcore, and be like, this is deathcore, this is deathcore, this is deathcore, at like these different points in the song.
And it's always very easy to tell, not only if it is it deathcore, it's Deviloof.
Yeah, that too. It's that nice like, because like that's a critique I would have of Western deathcore, is that it's like I can't tell the rough vocals apart, at a certain point. But Deviloof, like, I can tell when it's xaa-xaa from like his shrieking or his like, even his deep vocals and stuff like that.
Distinct voice.
Yeah.
Very much so. And it's getting stronger. Like, he's always had a very strong voice, but like as Deviloof is going on, I've been noticing the improvement and his skill level getting more polished.
Right. Yeah.
Not always the case in deathcore. I remember when Purge was still in production, I helped write some of the English lyrics, most notably for the two PV tracks for Escape and MF Jap. I was actually quite uncomfortable doing the English for MF Jap because, as you know, it's a very kind of strongly worded song.
Right, yeah.
There was like some points where I was like, bro, are you sure you want to write this? Meanwhile, I was completely fine writing Doe's Play, and that's a messed up fucking song. But with Escape, when we were writing the chorus line, like I was asking him, how are you going to sing this? And he was like, I'm going to sing it clean. And I was like, really? You're going to sing it clean? Can you sing it clean? Because I had never heard him sing clean vocals before, so I was kind of...
Hey guys, sorry.
Hello, welcome back.
Yeah, sorry, my coach started talking to us, and then we got off the bus, and I was like, but yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're good. We were talking about Deviloof.
So. Okay, cool. You're still on that topic. Great.
Yeah.
Yes, they're doing great right now. I'm really impressed by all of their work.
Yeah, Lori brought up something interesting, Winona, which is that when all the shit going down with Suicide Silence was happening, it was something that Deviloof like had to think about, when they were considering how much they were going to experiment, moving forward.
Yeah, true. Well, I was going to say something about that. Like when you said, Lori, when you mentioned like bands have to consider if they're going to be an experimental band or if they're going to have a core sound, like I was going to say that I find that like experimental bands tend to be more successful, but yeah, I guess it depends on how much they have finessed that experience, that experiment that they go with and what direction they choose to go in. Because if they choose to go in too much of a pop direction, then a lot of their fans just get really mad.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if Deviloof ever released a pop song, like it would be a riot.
Yeah, it would be bad.
Oh my gosh, that is such a betrayal. That would be such a betrayal. Oh man, but yes, please continue what you were saying.
We used to have a ongoing joke where I'd tell Keisuke that I would write a love ballad for him in English and he'd need to sing it.
He'd scream it? He'd scream it and it would be the heaviest, scariest song that they'd ever have. Which way you want?
I told him it would need to be clean vocals. But actually, I think a love ballad, like in their style, would be something interesting and worth seeing how they would pull off.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I Stick to the Side is kind of on that line, but I think they could like push it more.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Just looking at the chat real quick.
What they saying, bro? What it do, what it does, what it is.
Bryn's mad commenting and stuff like that. Let me see.
What's up, Bryn?
Yeah, he sounds like he's still on the fence about Deviloof, but you know, they're kind of hard to get into. But that's fine.
Deathcore is hard to get into.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's not like it's an accessible genre, really. You know?
Like I said, Deviloof from the very inception has been very polarizing. You either like them or you dislike them, and there's not a problem with either one.
Right, yeah, for sure.
People were like, oh yeah, it's younger during Grey. And I was like, nah.
The only thing I really dislike when it comes to this kind of situation is when people will try to like shame other people for liking a band. Like, oh, you like Deviloof, they suck, why do you like them? I really dislike that kind of...
Right, yeah. Hey, Winona, can you mute yourself when you're not talking? Because we're getting a bit of background noise.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Yeah, so like muting myself would be a little bit of a hassle, but I'll try my best.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I agree. It's pretty shitty when people are like, you know, like shaming people just for liking stuff, you know. I mean, there's bands that I don't know if there's any in Visual K. There's probably some, but like there's bands that I like, you know, that I also admit like I don't think are that great, but I just like them because I like them, you know, like. So like just to hate someone just for liking it, or to give someone shit just for liking it, yeah, it's pretty shitty. But yeah, it's a good point though about like that would be one hell of an April Fool's joke though for if KCK put out like a song of him clean singing a love ballad or something like that. It might be a little bit too far though for some bands, you know.
I think I'm not exactly sure when it was, but he released a mock-up PV with a cat included. I think when he first opened Twitter, and it kind of got a little bit of a viral response because it was just so strange.
Right. Oh wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I'd like to see that because like Desert had one of those as well. A little while back, and we were very entertained by that.
Like it wasn't anything legit or anything like properly done. It was just like pictures of a cat with him singing in the background.
Oh, okay. That's even funnier though, kind of like if it's like less legit. I don't know. That's just like a really funny like image I've got in my head now. But yeah, so I'd say overall, I think the general consensus, you know, kind of at VKH as a whole among the people that listen to deathcore or Deviloof, you know, is that like they're like really headed in a good direction, you know.
Yeah.
Been really impressed by what they've been able to pull off. I also wanted to point out that I thought it was interesting the timing in which the album came out, and also just their general like, you know, when they were just generally kind of blowing up very fast, because it was kind of at a time where Nocturnal Bloodlust was actually starting to like move away a little bit from like their last bits of flirtation with like their symphonic deathcore that, you know, they do, I guess they were never full deathcore, but like they definitely like flirted with it a lot, and we're kind of scratching that itch for the longest time. But
they started to move to like, I don't know what to call it. I honestly don't know what to call what they're doing right now, but it's not.
We can't quite hear you, Winona. Sorry.
I don't know. Oops. I realized why. I don't know what to call what they're doing right now, but whatever they're doing, it's not it. It's just
right now.
Yeah, because like, what was it? We swear that we heard saxophone and in Whiteout, and we're just like, like okay.
Yeah. Now might actually just be a good time to segue into talking about Nocturnal Bloodlust, because I had them on the list as well.
Are they indie? Well, I guess they're indie.
Yeah, they're indie. Lori, did you get to see or hear the new PV for Whiteout at all?
I had a brief check out of it, but not like really in depth.
Oh, okay. It's I'm still trying to figure out what to make of it, to be honest, because it's like I don't know. Like the general consensus in the comments seems to be that like it's weird the first time, but the last 4 or 5 times, like, you know, 4 or 5 listens later, it gets really interesting. But like, or you get hooked on it. But it's just like a really muddy like metalcore sound, and then there's like saxophone in it, and like, and then like it's like these clean vocals that kind of that are paired with like this PV, so that in the chorus it just like looks and sounds like they're singing about like some kind of like goth boy winter wonderlands, because they're like in like a snow covered forest and stuff, and it's really like weird. But I'm not ready to like rule it out entirely. I don't know, maybe Winona can help me kind of like convey our thoughts on it.
Sure, I'll try, because I think combined, you and me, Jeff, have had the same thoughts. Like when I first listened to it, I was like, this just sounds like really like backed up. The sound, it's just not clear. So I'm like I honestly am not sure if I even heard saxophone or if that's just a really weird whine of the guitar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Bryn's saying it's a guitar effect, but
yeah, that's what I thought.
Don't know.
Because it's like, it doesn't quite sound like a saxophone. And I was just like, it just doesn't, I don't know. It just doesn't sound right, like at all. Just that whole song, like I'm sure the composition like is fine, but just the way that it sounds, it doesn't sound right. And then the PV is weird too. And me and Jeff were trying to figure out like who it is exactly that like the vocalist looks like. Cause we were just like, we were like, that red jacket, it just reminds us of something, but we don't know what yet. So
yeah, I wanted to say it was the vocalist from Black Veil Brides, but from back in the day, but without the long hair, you know?
I don't think it's that. I honestly think it's some kind of emo punk band, like from way back before Black Veil Brides. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. They've had a very interesting progression just in general lately. Like, you know, I remember, I think the last thing that I was like super into by them that you could call like their starting point for this progression thing was the Omni God, like their last full album. I was super down with the Omni.
That was a great album, honestly.
Yeah, that was what was like doing it for me before Deviloof came along. You know, really. And then, you know, they really just like did a whole bunch of like different experimentations. I think Providence came out right after that, and that was like metalcore and jazz, which was like interesting. And then I believe they
step away.
Yeah, and then they had a song called Juso, I think, which was it had a live PV for it. That was like a good moshing song. And then they put out that song, or that mini album Zeets, I think, which had or I don't know how you say it. Zetas, if that's how you say it. Yeah.
I would think it's Zetas because they capitalized that T.
Yeah. Yeah, because that had that Malice Against song on it that is like that goes really hard. You know, it's pretty intense. I was a big fan of that. But I also noticed that like the other tracks on that mini album, you were starting to see like a lot more experimentation, like with different, more non-metalcore sounds, I guess. And then on their best album that they put out their new track with a PV for Break This Fake. And I wasn't a fan of that at first, but yeah, it grew on me eventually. But that's about right around the time they really started to sound closer to like more of a Western metalcore band. Like I picked Break This Fake to represent metalcore in our Visual K crash course, because that was really the one that I was like, wow, this is really starting to sound Western. And then like right after that, not that there's anything good or bad about that necessarily, but like it was noticeable. And then right after that, they put out this song Live to Die. And that's when people started getting scared. Like I saw people commenting on it because it sounded very Western, but also like not really like Nocturnal Bloodlust as much. But then they just like flipped around and put out this Whiteout EP, and it's like completely different from like any of that progression. So now it's like I don't know what they're doing. So I don't know. Lori, do you have any thoughts on what Nocturnal Bloodlust is up to exactly?
I don't follow them that much, because like honestly I don't have much of the time, but I know they're still regarded very well here in Japan. So going back to Deviloof, I know they look up to them, so they're still very well received by fans here, despite all the sorry, I can't pronounce that word at the moment, but all of the experiments that they're doing with their music at the moment. One thing that you actually said there that like piqued my interest was the word Western. It's sounding more Western, which is something that is only an issue to international fans. I've never really heard that mentioned by any Japanese fans or like any Japanese person at all. Or their music sounds too Western lately.
I don't know if I wouldn't say that like fans over here get mad that they sound too Western, unless that's the point that Jeff was trying to make.
That was I mean, it was an observation I was making that I'm kind of indifferent on. But I'm the only person that I've ever, or like the only people who listen to Visual K that I've ever heard say that in a non-derogatory way are like people like us that work in press or like in the industry. So it is like a derogatory thing for a lot of fans, and I do see it in their comments and stuff.
Overseas? What the heck?
Yeah, totally.
What?
I think it's that thing that plays back into what we were talking about with why people don't like Batar so much, is that they're too Western, you know? Like,
no, I think the problem that people have with Batar is that like this goes into like the whole issue that some people have with like Western Visual K bands, like overseas Visual K bands, because like you first see them and they all try to sing in Japanese the first time, and that immediately turns off a bunch of fans because they're just like, your Japanese doesn't sound right, therefore you must be bad. And I'm just like, well, like the same way that they're struggling to sing in Japanese is the way how a Japanese band would struggle to sing in English. So I'm just sitting here like, if those Western bands just sang in their home, like their mother language, they'd probably be all right, you know? But
I don't know. Maybe they're not related, but I mean, Lori, the only way I've heard it from fans is like in a derogatory way, which, you know, I don't think it should matter, but you know.
Like I said, I don't follow the progress of Nocturnal Bloodlust particularly closely as a band, but I'm very, like, I love, if that sounds weird, I really like keeping up with what fans are saying, not only about the bands I work with, but the industry in general. So you find a lot of fan opinions on Nocturnal Bloodlust because they are quite a well-known indie band. And that is something that I have seen mentioned about them a lot, and primarily in a negative tone.
Do you think it has to do with like them having done so many tours with bands like Bless the Fall and stuff? Because they did one festival.
I mean, I don't think that's why the fans have that opinion, but I'm sure that's why their music has had that change.
No, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But I don't think I think fans are worried that they're going to end up sounding like every post-punk band or like emo band, and they're just like, I'm not into that, or like I don't want to be considered emo or something.
Every possibility that they're going to, because you never know like how it's going to end up, how the influences are going to affect them. But at the same time, the fans, if they are a fan of the band, should wait and see if that's the direction it goes in.
Right, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
If just label, or they're playing with so-and-so, or their music is starting to change, I'm just going to tune out because it's not worth my time and money anymore, you might miss out on something fantastic.
Right, yeah.
I would personally recommend just like sticking to your guns a little bit, giving them a bit of a chance, and seeing if they cross that line where their music is no longer enjoyable at all to you anymore.
Right. Yeah. Which is, I mean, there's so many bands that you have to be like that if you're going to follow them in the Visual K scene that, you know, it actually makes me wonder, it may not even be a Visual K thing. It may be like a J metal thing. Because I know a lot of the reasons that, or one of the big reasons that people get into like Japanese metal is because they're so sick of Western metal that has had a long history of like, especially metalcore, of just like all sounding the same and like unoriginal and uninteresting. So they might have like musical PTSD, and like anytime they hear something that sounds Western, it brings back some bad memories of like, oh no, my favorite band sounds like all of these other bands again. But you're definitely right.
Be that, or like they're, I don't know, man. It can either be that, or like the fact that some of their favorite bands just end up betraying them and going pop. I don't know.
Yeah, but I still feel like that's a Western thing more.
It is a Western thing, and that's what I'm saying. Like when they hear a band going Western, they're just like, oh no, it started.
I think more than anything, a lot of Visual K fans, the reason why we become interested in Visual K is because it is so different from Western music.
Yes.
So it offers a different opinion, a different view, a different style than what we have surrounded ourselves with. Not by choice, but just because that's just what is in our mainstream media. So the idea of like a Japanese band, Visual K or whatever, starting to sound more Western, you can go listen to that at a supermarket if you want to hear Western style music. I had another point, but it just completely slipped my mind.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Bryn says in the chat that Thing is in all Japanese metal fans, but VK fans hate it more because VK is so different to Western rock. So yeah, it's like kind of the same thing.
It's way more different than Western rock.
Yeah,
you see J metal and you're just like, hey, J metal, but then it's like VK would be like J metal with makeup.
Yeah,
it's how to explain that.
Yeah, it's really funny that you know, because it's like you look at like certain Western bands, even metalcore bands, like, you know, people like lost their minds when like Bring Me the Horizon, first when they changed from deathcore to metalcore, and then when they changed from metalcore to new metal, like whatever their last album was, like people, like there were people that were like losing their minds over that. And I was just kind of looking at it like, this is like a single to single difference, like for the bands that I'm used to listening to in Visual K, you know, like, so yeah,
it's just another walk in the park for Jeff, you know.
Yeah. Like
every album changes. All right, cool.
Did any of the band members leave or quit?
Did the band disband? No.
Did it disband? It's like, you know, yeah. So I think now's a good time we can go ahead and do an about face and talk about some Osharike. We want to talk about Vivarush for a second.
Aw, snap.
What was that?
Vivarush.
Vivarush. Sorry, that's
See,
my
Jeff?
that's my southern drawl that I somehow have, even though I'm in Florida.
Lori, I need you to back me up in terms of getting Jeff to pronounce things right. Like
I'm doing my best. I'm sorry.
It's okay. My pronunciation is terrible too. I've been working with ReVellion for 3 years, and I still have trouble saying Amir's name.
Oh, yeah. So Vivarush. Lori, do you want to give us, you know, your first take on, because I think their progress is more subtle, but I still think it's like noticeable. Like if you look at their first single and then what they've got out now. Do you want to give us your first take on it?
Yeah, sure. Vivarush, if you just look at them as Vivarush, the change has been very subtle. But if you go back and you look at their previous band, complete 360. Like the sound. I saw something like that. I'm not completely sure on the pronunciation of it, but the style is very different. And basically what it was they were that band. Then they had a session band called Secret. And then they moved on to being Vivarush. So it's been quite a long period of time throughout all those transitions. And they're really starting to stable out, and they've really found their sound, in my opinion. And I think also Vivarush as a band, how can I say this? Their key point is not only their music, because they have good music, but their major key point is their personalities.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's one of the main things for a band to be really successful, to use their personality to really push themselves.
They do that to the extreme. Like, all of the members have such a strong character. And it's not only them like acting, they are really like that. Like, Hummy is really that batshit insane crazy. He's just 5-year-old that's eating all of the Halloween candy all of the year.
Oh my gosh.
And Remar, the vocalist, he's a really sweet guy. Like, you talk to him and he's just a very kind person. And he's also he's funny in a cute way. And Belle is just so chillaxed. They're just a really nice bunch of guys, and I think they show that in their music as well. Because if you listen to their music, it's all so upbeat, so positive, and the fact that they're showing that so well now, not only through their music but through their promotion, I think that's helped them grow a lot to this point, and I think it's gonna help them grow even further as they continue it.
Right. Yeah. Bryn just asked a question in the chat. I was about to answer it anyway for him, or before he even asked it, because of what I was about to say, but I'll definitely let you speak to it as well. He was like, he wasn't super into like their stuff since Merry Go Round, but he wanted to know if he should try their new stuff. And what I was going to say is that is what sold me on Vivarush, was like, their last two singles, especially their last single, Odara Sare Jinsei. When I saw that,
Jeff,
the song in the PV, I was like, this is it. This is Osharike. It's back.
No, yeah, between me and Jeff, we kind of like looked at Vivarush, like, I don't remember which music video it was, but it was like definitely one of their older ones. And like, I was like, we were both like, when we first saw it, just kind of skipped over them. And then the newer one came out, we were like, this is it. This is lit. This is it.
Well, it was funny because Lori, we had been chatting, and you mentioned that you were starting to work with them, and I didn't know who they were, like, from the name, but then you sent it to me, and it was like one of like, and the one you sent to me was their Mademoiselle PV, and it happened to be like one of like 3 bands that I happened to have in like my playlist in rotation. It was like they were like small enough that I wasn't totally familiar with their names, but their songs were getting stuck in my head. So I think that's when I realized like who they were. They were already on their way, and then with their last single. But yeah, if you want to address that as well, just like the the improvement, especially with the last single and the PV for it and stuff like
the last PV, I think the way it was filmed and the story they're telling behind it was like semi-genius, because it's just such a funny PV to watch. And I think, let's be honest, we all like a good laugh, right? So like, that's the thing with Vivarush. You're having a bad day, you can listen to their music, you can watch their PVs or like any of the videos that they have up on YouTube, because they have the Viva TV and they put up some live videos and all of that, and it makes your day a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, the last single, Odasare da Jinsei, is definitely, in my opinion, the best they've done so far.
I have to agree with you on that one.
Was a really good start for them, and they kind of like slowly kept on adding to it. And I think at the moment, Jinsei is just the peak at the moment, but I think they're gonna go past that.
I hope so, because I really like that music video and that song. So
yeah, that was like, yeah, that it was a huge improvement, and I was like really surprised with like, because they're doing a lot in this in the song, like in terms of like the different sounds they're using, but like it all stuck together, and I'm like, for such a new band to like do that, like that's like a really good sign, man, like a really good sign.
And personally, my favorite song for them isn't that though. My favorite song is a song called Natural Bicycle. And vision up on their Facebook page with English subtitles done by me. And I just love that song. Like, it's hard to describe why, but it's just such a great song. And watching it live, watching the fans get into it, watching the band get into it. I remember the first time I saw them perform that song, I was like, they're actually really good.
Right.
That was the kick moment for me.
Yeah, that was a level of fan involvement and coordination I hadn't seen in a band Vivarush's size, like ever. Because they're like, aren't they like having them do the wave, like you know, and stuff like that?
Yeah, that like, crowd engagement, man, that's really key. Like, I can tell you, like, firsthand, I've seen bands that have great sound but like awful crowd engagement, because when they come overseas, they're like used to performing in stadiums and stuff, so they don't know how to interact with an audience anymore. But then you got like smaller bands who interact with the audience all the time because they're within reach, so they just use their personalities and are able to like get people to be super engaged even if they don't know who they are. And it's just the best.
Vivarush is very much very concentrated on that. They pride themselves on their crowd interaction and their fan interaction.
Yeah, that's gonna get them big.
Yeah. So like something that's really common in Japan is after one-man concerts, like a concert where only one band is playing, there'll quite often be fan xaa-xaas after the live, which is where, like, if you buy a certain amount of merchandise from the merchandise table, you get a ticket and you can take a picture of the band after the concert finishes. And generally, like, they last about an hour or so. And Vivarush, for the same amount of people, will last for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And it's because they want to have like a longer time to spend with each individual fan.
Oh, that's so nice.
Wow. Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. You can kind of tell, like, on their Facebook posts, like, because they're really engaged, like the stuff that they're getting out there. So if you guys want to see more of what we're talking about, Vivarush has an English Facebook page. They also made with Lori and V-Star's help, they made a live video that is subtitled for that song that Lori was talking about, Magic Bicycle. Is it Magic Bicycle?
Natural Bicycle.
Natural Bicycle.
Natural Bicycle, right. Okay. And it's on their Facebook as well. And you guys should definitely check it out because it's lots of fun.
In a few hours, we're actually going to be doing a live stream of their concert that's on tonight.
That's right. That's right. This is the perfect promotion time on this live stream. Go from here to Facebook, you guys.
Yeah, and we'll share it on our Facebook page so that you can, if you can't find it for some reason, or you just want to be quick about it, like we'll share the link. So.
It's at 6:30, right, Lori? PM JST.
Yeah, around that.
Yeah, so that would be like 4 a.m. here, 4:30 a.m. here.
It's actually a 2-man with Jack Keeper.
Oh, true. They're good too.
So we're not going to be live streaming Jack Keeper because that's a completely different band. But, we're going to be live streaming. It's currently undecided how long, but at least a few songs of Vivarush's set. Honestly, it just depends on how strong the internet connection is. But if possible, we're gonna live stream the whole set. If not, at least three to four songs. So if you're free, I know time zones suck, but if you're free and you're awake, do tune in.
If you got nothing to do.
If it's the case where it's not possible, we'll be leaving it up on Facebook, hopefully, so you can watch it later on.
Oh, that would be so nice. And if you can play it in the background.
Yeah. In person, because I just want to see it flood with comments.
And like heart emojis and like emojis, all those.
Dancing girl emojis.
Yeah.
Right. Bryn says that he misses Oshari K and Cafe, and Dog and the PWO have been slipping recently. I would definitely just say go check out Vivarush. Vivarush's new PV. Their YouTube channel is or the YouTube channel you want to look for is Kerberos Entertainment.
Yeah, aren't they? They're signed to Kerberos, right?
Yeah. So, and Bryn also says, let's talk Grimoire. Winona, do you want to talk about Grimoire?
It's one of those bands that you put on the list under my name for me to follow up with.
Yeah, if you're caught up on it, you can go through it, and then I'll check out their latest song while you're doing that, since he says that their new song is pretty great.
I have my handy dandy computer. Which one was their latest song, Bryn? I don't know. It's been a minute.
You can just talk about Grimoire in general.
I'll just talk about Grimoire in general because it's been a minute. It's been super hard to keep up with all the bands, honestly.
Hey guys, I'll be right back.
Okay, that sounds cool. I also need to plug in my phone because that's how I'm on this live stream, and it would suck if it died. But Grimoire, interesting band, because from the I'd say the first PV, right? That was really iffy for Jeff. I thought it was
throw me right under the bus. Right under the bus.
I thought it was a decent PV. Jeff was like, but those vocals though. And I was like, okay, look, it's the first song. Chill. And then they came out with, I think it was I forgot what the name of that single was, and I don't think it was the second single. I think it was like their fourth single, and like the vocalist was in like this kind of like schoolgirl uniform because it's like he keeps up with this kind of imagery where he's the one who's asleep or in a coma and he's dreaming, and then like all the other band members are some kind of something that you would only find in the other realm, like angels and things like that, which is
that
really
does sound like my ideal band concept, where I'm just constantly laying around and half asleep.
Just constantly daydreaming or just asleep in general, that sounds like what I want to do right now, but alas, here I am.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check out, I'm gonna find their new song, but at the same time I gotta make sure I pull up their discography. But I think that was a really good improvement for them. Like, they've come so far, because the way how they've changed their sound, like, oh shit, yeah, okay, I see what their new single is. The new look is totally different from what I'm talking about right now, because before it was super like soft, but now they look like they've gone a little more hardcore with their new stuff.
The last thing they put out in November is Urano.
That's what I'm talking about.
Metria.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm talking about with the mermaids. I was gonna call it Mermaid just because there were mermaids all over the single cover, but that's what I'm talking about, with the constellations on it and stuff. It was super cute, and I thought that it worked really well with the vocals, because they had tweaked their sound enough to like suit how the vocalist's range is. Like, I'm sure like they tried to establish that they could go hard if they wanted to in that first single, like to show their general range, but it's Ura no Metoria. Yeah. Ura no Metoria. That is their best sounding song, in my opinion, because everything sounds so cohesive and no one sounds like they're really like straining to reach something that they can't. But I haven't yet gotten a chance to check out their album.
Yeah, this is much better. I've been watching and listening to it. It's way more suited for his voice.
Yeah, you're watching Uranometria, right?
Yeah, Brent actually says their first PV was good, but the sound quality was gross.
Yeah.
And he says the vocalist is a child and the other band members are his imaginary friends.
That's okay. Yeah, that sounds right. Yep, because he's in pajamas the first PV, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm with it. And then he's in that the classic child clothing in this PV, and I thought it was a little odd. I was like, okay, all right, you're a grown adult, but that's cool. You do.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, like. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
weird concept in Visual K is like, another Saturday night for us. But
so if the vocalist is a child, then this new look must be a real disturbed child.
I mean,
I'm sorry, but like, it's yeah.
Is it like, does he look like the child from The Omen, or?
Well, the vocalist.
Oh my!
You just saw it, right? The vocalist is always covering his eyes, and now he's crying blood, as far as I'm concerned. And his imaginary friends have gone rogue.
He looks like he's been. It's a child in a mental institution.
I need to hear the new album, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
that's the next step here. This is that looks like such a turn away from everything they've done. I don't know. This is gonna be interesting.
Maybe they're gonna try screaming, even though they weren't originally.
This just in, Grimoire becomes deathcore against all your wildest imaginations.
Yeah. So I think we're pretty happy with the direction they're going. Curious about where they're headed next.
With this album right now, especially that. Their latest single that they had put out and made available to watch on YouTube was like the best that I'd heard from them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we can go through like a couple more. And maybe touch on Rides and ReVellion when Lori gets back as like the finale. Or are you back, Lori?
She's
back. Hey, Lori.
And I came running.
Oh, I was just gonna say we could go through a couple more and then probably end with Rides and ReVellion. So, so I think the next band I wanted us to get into is xaa-xaa, and I want Winona to take the lead on this because I know you have some thoughts to get out there.
xaa-xaa, man, that was a band that I had such high hopes for, and I was so happy with them the way that they were, not the way that they are, because they've gone in such a weird direction. Like, I feel like I was telling Jeff before that I feel like they like became like they were trying to be Dataroma, but it didn't work out because Dataroma is Dataroma and xaa-xaa is xaa-xaa. Like, xaa-xaa was that indie band that other indie bands copied at the time, because like it was like Kurai Kurai. That was such a classic. Like, that was such a banger that I was watching some other PVs from bands that came out around the same time or a little bit after that single came out, that I kept hearing literally them saying Kurai Kurai in the same style at the start of those PVs or like in the middle of it, and then we just keep going. And I was like, wow, yeah, like xaa-xaa really influenced a couple of indie bands as an indie band themselves. But I think then they signed to Go Major, and then they were like, when they had signed to Go Major, they started putting out like these wonderful story arcs of like monthly what's it called, campaign singles, and like they were going through this really interesting story arc covering this one girl's like life as she went through like her different relationships with men, like how she was sexually harassed in the workplace, and how like she had like issues with her boyfriend or something, and she finally like met somebody and was in love with them, but then they were dying of like a fatal illness or disease, and then it ended at that. And it was just such an interesting story arc. But like as soon as that ended, they started changing and like put out Batsu Tomaru, I think it was called, or Maru Tobatsu. One of those like that's organized one way or the other. But when they put that out, I was like, okay. And then the single they put out right after that was like they were clearly I don't know, man. I don't know what they were trying to do, but it didn't work for me, and it didn't sound like xaa-xaa the way that I knew them to sound, because it just sounded like they were trying to copy other bands that were on the come up at the time.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean, because you showed me their latest.
Yeah, which was Akairo, I think it was something
Yeah,
red.
I think so.
Yeah, it was that when they put that out, like I just felt more disappointed, because that just looked like a copy of which one did I say it looked like a copy of? It looked like they were just copying every other Eroguro Visual K band that's just starting out. Honestly, that's how I felt about it. I was like, damn, this is a disappointment, because they were already super popular in Japan. Because I was talking to one of our translators, and like he's so cool. He's like super involved in the industry as an official translator. I don't know if I can say the company he works for, but like, because he's like really, he's really how do I put this? Paranoid that somebody's gonna figure out who he is and he's gonna get fired for listening to VK bands. But it's a really important company. I'll put it that way. And because of what he does, he knows who is and isn't popular in Japan. And xaa-xaa was one of those bands that was super popular in Japan. Like, they were always mentioned, and it was just
like
damn.
If you were playing a Thai band, which is like a multi-band event, with xaa-xaa as like an indie band, it was considered a really good sign of your future.
Right. Yeah. See,
wow.
Yeah, xaa-xaa was that level. I don't even
like
they're probably still that level, but
they weren't really considered like highly major, but they were at that level that other bands really wanted to play with them.
Yeah, like they were one of those really good indie bands, right? Like up there. Yeah. And like, I don't know.
Yeah, indie bands.
Yeah, like Lori, have you like been checking out their recent stuff? Because it's like, I don't know, like they fell off. I'm sure they're still really popular just because they had a really strong fan base, and they probably still have a really strong fan base, but it's not like it used to be.
Yeah, I can say that I agree with that. Honestly, I think their biggest struggle, and the way that the reason they're facing a bit of a decline at the moment, I think they were not prepared for Roji leaving and the impact it was going to have. Because even among the industry here, and especially in Osaka, because they're an Osaka band, a lot of people really respected Roji. He's a very incredibly skilled drummer. And the thing with xaa-xaa is, regardless of anything else, you listen to their older music, and even if you go back and listen to Bell Mosaic or any of their previous bands, you listen to that and you can always hear Roji's drumming, because he just had a very strong skill set. And with him gone, you lose that strong, stable bass that was his drum line. And I think that was just something that they weren't really anticipating the loss of.
Yeah, I forgot that they had lost their drummer. Gosh.
He also had a very strong fan following too. So that was kind of like a hiccup on their plan. And I think it's something that they're still on the road to recovery from. They might get there in the end, but at the moment, I think they still have a little bit to travel.
I think it's just about. So, do they have like a support drummer right now? Because they haven't replaced him, right?
I'm not sure. I'll just have a quick look. But I'm pretty sure they haven't replaced him.
Yeah, because that is one hard drummer to replace.
Yeah,
he's the case.
Incredibly talented.
Oh man, yeah. One key step in them getting to recover is finding somebody. Okay.
But his skill set
was just
yeah, it's
Good luck to them, I guess. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. Yeah, I don't know what to.
But that's the thing, though. And it's not only with xaa-xaa. It's a harsh reality that a lot of bands face, because members needing to leave for whatever reason is quite common. It's sometimes musical differences. It's sometimes legitimately because of family reasons. Sometimes members just lose the passion. But some bands can survive the loss of certain members. But there's usually one or two key members in every band that if that member leaves, the band is going to struggle.
Right. Yeah.
Going back to a band I know well, Deviloof, in my opinion, that band could survive any members leaving except for Daiki and Keisuke.
Yeah.
I think they'll struggle a little bit if xaa was to ever leave, because he's the main composer, but I think they'd find a way. But the moment Keisuke leaves, they wouldn't be able to find another vocalist to replace him.
It's over. It's so hard to find a vocalist that can scream and survive it, because so many vocalists develop so many bad polyps. Yeah. Like Hizumi from Despair's, right? He couldn't last, and it's so disappointing for so many people.
And going back to xaa-xaa, it's the same thing. Roji was just so immensely talented at what he did. Even though they've got a new drummer now, he's got awfully big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Not taken away from him or anything. But Roji was just of a different level.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed. I mean, like, have they lost any momentum since these new releases have come out? Do you know, Lori?
I do hear their name less.
I think they lost momentum. I can already tell. Because, like, when we put out news about xaa-xaa, it gets way fewer hits than it used to.
Yeah.
Shit. That sucks.
Well, I know Ruby was also really popular with foreign fans.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Like, and not just popular. They were, like, they were held in high esteem. Like, like, even like the more elitist of fans and stuff were like, I want more bands to sound like this, like, or do stuff like this, So,
actually, it was last year, was it? We actually filmed a comment video with xaa-xaa, but we were never able to upload it due to a few issues. But I still remember recording it, and that was before Roji left the band. Just a little bit before Roji left the band, which was why we weren't able to release it primarily. But he was fantastic during the whole filming of the comment video. He really tried his best with English, and after the filming, he was just talking to me about the Western music that influenced him. And the way he talked about it, you could kind of see where his influences led him to be as skilled as what he is.
Yeah, I can see that, because like some musicians that I talk to when they do come over here, like they get really excited to talk about bands like Apocalyptica and like Avenged Sevenfold, and then when they talk about it, you just see that glimmer in their eye, and like it's like they're one of the most technically skilled members on the band.
Yeah, like going back to the filming of the comment video, before we filmed the comment video, I was in a meeting, me and John, who is another V-Star staff member. We were in a meeting room talking to their manager, and Roji just came in to chat because he just wanted to talk Western music.
It's hard to talk Western music over there, sure. Oh man.
So after that, we went and filmed the video, and after that, he wanted to talk more about Western music. So
Western music is life for him.
Oh, for sure.
So cute. It's nice.
I gotta say, it's still kind of surreal for me to like watch a band like fall off like this in real time, you know, like xaa-xaa, you
It
know,
hurt
like,
so bad.
like being able to like to see the views go down and like all that. It's really like, it's excitingly surreal when it's like they start skyrocketing and you start like, being like, we need to you go from like we can get to this, we can report this in a little bit to we need to report this now.
We have to put it out right now, right? Like
yeah,
we stop. It's funny because it's literally how we view it. Like if we see news go up on Twitter from one band, we'll be like, we can put that up in like 2 days. But then if a different band were to do that, we'll be like, we have to get that up like in this right this moment. We have to stop whatever we're doing.
I have to get out of bed.
Yeah, it's like you have to walk out of a meeting. I'm like, I have to leave class. Let's go. Like,
yeah, we had to do that for the Gazette.
We had to do that for Miyavi. I had to do that for Miyavi. You had to do that.
Oh my god!
I had to do that for Gazette. Oh man.
No, but it's really depressing on the flip side. Like just being like,
it's like you're like, okay, I have to put this up, and then later you're just like, man, do I have to? Like,
no, it's not even that. It's like I don't. It's just like because they were getting more views, so you're like worried, I mean. like really worried.
No, that's what I mean. Like you want to cry because you're just like, oh, they were in it to win it, and my heart. Like I really hope they pick up. I really do. They were going places, man. Like they were going places.
Yeah. All right, let's pull out of the sad slump we're in and talk about a band that we can all agree is like pretty cheerful to talk about. So let's get into Rides and ReVellion because I know Bryn was asking for that in the chat, and I know a lot of our readers like them in general. So Lori, do you want to recap their general progress? I guess that they're new enough that we could go through just their general progress, but especially their last
about 2017 and like so far in 2018.
I actually saw their first ever concert.
Oh wow!
I've been with them since pretty much the start. And back when they formed, it was originally only Taiji, Kuro, and Ame, and they had a support bassist called Komatsu. He mainly does just like normal music and all that. Really talented guy, really good at what he does. But he was never in it for the long run. And from the moment I first saw them, like I could kind of tell that they had a lot of potential. And Taji in particular is such a smart person. Like he had the whole year, if not 2 years, already planned out. Sorry, I'm also eating breakfast at the moment. He knew what he wanted to achieve, and he had an action plan on how to get there. And the first thing they wanted was a white girl in their music video, so that was where they found me.
They were like, yo, we need a white girl.
That was legit it. Like he found me at another concert, and 2 months later slid into my DMs and was like, "Hey."
They were like, "Hey, we're looking for a white girl for a music video. You down?"
Yeah, basically that was it.
That's so funny.
Formal Japanese, and I remember getting the message with my friend, and I was like, "Wait, what?"
That's funny.
And that's how V-Star was born. But that aside, from that, we had a meeting, and I was like, from the way he talked before I even heard their music, before I saw them live, just the passion he had in it, I thought to myself, I don't care what they sound like, they have potential. And to this day, if Taji says
passion.
Yeah. To this day, if Taji says something, I have faith in it because he just speaks with such conviction. And from that moment on, you go back and you look at Shane and just not look at me because something that still embarrasses me to this day. And you move on to Eternal, just from that one single progression, you can see how much more polished they got from that short time. Like Kuro got more in control of his vocals, just the guitar lines and everything was just a lot more polished. And also I got to help fix Kuro's English pronunciation a little bit, along with the help of another V-Star staff member, Jackie. And they just kept on going. Unfortunately, the international promotion has slowed down a little bit because they needed to focus on Japan for a little while, with them joining the label that they're under, Flag Records Brilliant.
That's reasonable because you need to get like popular back home in order to be able to continue to grow overseas. So
yeah, it was a decision that needed to be made. It wasn't that we and they were ignoring their foreign fans. It was just something that needed to be done. Because of that, they've kind of probably slowed down in the public, like international scene at the moment. And I think compared to what they were back in their heyday, so around the Anime USA time period, they're probably not as well known internationally as what they were, which is a shame. But we're planning on changing that because musically they've still continued to grow.
I want to say that their time will come. Because, like, what was it? Shane said, Jeff, that they start to sound like X-Japan. And that's interesting because I remember when we interviewed them at Anime USA, like, I think Taji said, like, he was heavily influenced by X-Japan. And I was like, oh, word, and here it is.
Yeah, that's actually something I was going to float by you, Lori, is that our one of our reviewers, Shane, he was actually telling us that he had listened to the most recent release, which was The Light, I believe it was called. And
because he's a huge fan of Rides of ReVellion, I think.
Yeah, and I still have to go through it. I've listened to a little bit of it, and I like what I hear so far for sure. But I'm usually pretty. My mind's usually made up about Rides of ReVellion that I'm gonna like it. But he said he was getting Japan vibes is like what I think he got, like the atmosphere and stuff like that. And,
yeah, because he said his friends were like, yo, he said somebody said this sounds like X-Japan. He's like, nah, on like monochrome heaven boards, I think. And then he listened to it, he's like, oh, yeah?
Taji loves X-Japan. I'm not sure if they used their normal intro for Anime USA, but in Japan, they have an intro that is legit my voice, and it goes along mixing the it starts with on drums Ame, on bass Nagisa, on guitar Taji, on vocals Kuro, mixing the future and the past with sadistic, sorrowful, sentimental sounds. Ria rides in ReVellion.
Echo.
And X-Japan does the same thing. But it's X-Japan.
And then everybody screams.
Yeah. So they have the same intro. And luckily, it was so I didn't need to say ReVellion. So that would have killed me, but that was just edited. Yeah, very heavily influenced. And you just even look at the way Taji styles himself. And you can see very obvious connections as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned how Kuro's vocals had improved, and I remember he said he was influenced by Whitney Houston, and I was like, oh, word, and Jeff was like, yeah, if you listen to Eternal, you can tell. I was like, true, the best place to learn is from R&B singers, so I don't know what else to say.
Kuro is very unique in his vocal range. Especially for a tiny Japanese man that he is.
Yeah, he has a very interesting taste in music. So I remember he said Whitney Houston and like Black Veil Brides, and I was like, those are two different things, my guy. But I feel you. Same. Like, so.
Yeah.
Boy loves Whitney Houston.
She was great, and like, rest in peace. It's really unfortunate, but like Bobby Brown fucked her up. So that's all I can say on the topic before everyone clicks out of this live stream.
All right, come on.
Yeah, Kuro, I think one way that I can really kind of like pimp out his vocal abilities the best I can is they, as a band, Rise and ReVellion, quite often do acoustic lives, or they do kind of more like ballad songs as well. And I think a lot of visual kei bands struggle to do a good ballad, and they struggle even more to pull off acoustic. But I think if you ever listen to Kuro sing acoustic or listen to any of their ballads like Amnesia or Daydream, his voice is fantastic. He's so in control. He has a nice tone. He carries it well. And not only that, the rest of the members really back him up with the music that they put out.
Right, yeah. Yeah, oh shoot, I just had something to say. I totally forgot what it was going to be. Sorry. I may just not listen to enough X Japan, or have listened to enough X Japan recently to really get like the exact like vibe that I think most people are getting. But I definitely understand, you know, like what people are getting at, because there's like a certain, and it has to do with like, you know, the composing and maybe like Kuro's voice, which is like really smooth. But there's like this grandness that they have as a, you know, as a sound, like especially in their choruses, that they're somehow able to pull off, even though they're using like a lot of electronic music that I haven't really seen from a lot of I just haven't seen like from other bands, and it's really cool. It's very magical, kind of the way they're able to do it. You know, it's like a digital symphonic rock kind of thing, and it really works. Really works. You know?
Not taking anything away from Ame and Nagisa, because they're both fantastic as well. But I think Haji and Kuro as a pair just work incredibly well together. And they've worked together for quite a few years, like even in their previous band, Black September. Like,
oh, okay.
A good way to say it is Kuro has a very clean, smooth voice. And he has like just a really good voice. But with Taji backing him up and the sounds that he creates makes Kuro's voice like go from a 10 to like a 20. Like he really
I can see that.
Amps it up.
Yeah, it's just a great band, solid songs, and you know, unique sound. I remember the thing I was going to say, which is that I know that you know, they are focusing on, you know, like, you know, Japan promotions, like local promotions and things like that. But I will say that from what I saw when they were at, you know, when they came here to DC, and you know, and Winona and I got to see them for the first time, and the general impression I got is that they hooked like you know, a good portion of the people that were there, and they hooked them in pretty deep, because
oh yeah, when they played, I keep telling Jeff, like when they played the what's it, Evelyn theme song, everyone was in with it, like, because that was such a good version of the Evelyngian theme song, and everyone was like crying.
They worked really hard on that.
That was a beautiful play. And then Jeff came in and was like, yo, I don't know that theme song. And I was just mad at him.
Yeah, I'm a bad anime boy.
That was something
like,
that I really wanted to do for like the anime fans in attendance, because they were like very much aware it's not a normal.
Smart.
And they don't have any anime theme songs of their own, so they asked me for quite a long time beforehand what animes are really popular overseas, like what anime is really popular in America, what song could we sing and it would be known. So I gave them a list, and that was the one they decided on. And they really kicked it out of the ball. Fantastic.
Because it's covered by so many bands, but like that was like one of the best covers I heard of that song.
Yeah.
And I've heard it like covered by like a church choir, so I don't know.
Yeah. Kuro has that kind of voice, but I think another thing in particular about the Anime USA performance, and you guys can attest to it because you were there, their energy for that particular concert was very intense as well.
Oh yeah,
so was definitely
super impressed. Yeah,
I was in the back. I know, like, I think Jeff was in the crowd, and I'm like one of those that like to stay in the back because I've been in it for so long that I kind of just lost all like the fangirling over anything. I don't know how to explain it. Like I can enjoy the concert just by standing and watching. So I was in the back and I just watched all these people just like going crazy, and I was like, wow. Like for a small band, a band the size of Rise of ReVellion, that was really impressive.
Yeah, I was paying attention, or like I was up towards the front, and I was, trying to keep an eye on everyone around me so I could like make a note of it in the live report. And like it was, people were really into it. First of all, like before they even got on stage, there was like, the very front row, they had like dedicated fans that were like super stoked to see them and stuff.
Yeah.
Which was like already surprising in and of itself, because for a band their size, and then they just had everybody that I could see.
I think at least the first two rows that were excited to see them, because when I was in the photo pit to photograph them for it, like they were, I think you were talking to them, Jeff, and like people just like surrounding you were just down to talk about Rise of ReVellion for like a good minute before the show started.
I think what happened was like there were definitely people that went to the con purposely just to see Rise of ReVellion. But during the weekend of the con, we also sent the boys out with a staff member. Like it was usually two of the members and one of the staff members. And it was Halloween weekend, right? So they were handing out little cards with information about the performance, like what room, what time, and candy. So they were just like walking around the con handing them out. And I think a lot of people that didn't necessarily know that they were performing or who they were came just because of that. And I think at the start of the concert, there were a lot of people just hanging around the back, checking out to see what the band was like because they gave them candy.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. And then as they played the songs,
went on, like not even that long after it started, you could see people like gathering up closer to the start and really getting into it.
Yeah.
And I remember as we were leading the boys back past the merchandise table after the show had ended, and the merchandise table was just like crazy busy. People lost their mind as they walked by because they had been converted and they just loved them.
They were converted.
That's a good example, or that's a good way to describe it for sure. So
yeah, definitely.
Also, like a key point that still really stands out in my mind to this day. Like I said, I've been with them since their first concert. I haven't been to all of their concerts, but I've been to like a really good number of them.
It's your band.
To this day, that's the only time I remember seeing Kuro jump out into the crowd.
He was passionate.
Yeah. Wow.
He was passionate. Your guy was passionate.
And I remember, like, as we were setting up, the security guys was like, he's not planning to go out into the crowd or anything, right? And I was like, nah, he never does that. And
the exact opposite happened.
The security guy kind of looked at me, and I was like, sorry, I didn't know. It's true, he's never done it before.
Dang.
So yeah, the security guy had a bit of a panic attack because he wasn't prepared for it, but he just got so caught up in the atmosphere and the feeling of it, because the feeling between a Japanese concert and an international concert is just so different.
Yeah, I can see it.
Surprised him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I can see it because like when I watch like live videos from some other like J-rock bands, visual K bands, like it feels like it's too, I don't know how to put it. It just feels like it's too organized. Like at certain moments the fans will head bang, and then certain other moments they'll just like wave their hands, and it doesn't feel wild enough or like just like on the spot enough for the band to really want to go out there. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah. Bren in the chat says respect to Rise and ReVellion for going abroad despite not being, like so big. But yeah, definitely respect to them, and respect to them for pulling it off, man. Like I was still like just really impressed by that band in like every way, to be completely honest. So
honestly, when I first went to them with the idea or the possibility of playing overseas, they were hesitant. I remember when I told them about the possibility, and Taji was like, "Oh well, if you can do it, we'll do it." He was just like, he wasn't overly excited, but he wasn't dismissive. He was just like, "Well, if you can organize it, like if there's a convention that wants us, we'll do it." He didn't really particularly like the chances, but he wasn't saying no. And Kuro was kind of in the same boat, whereas Ame was kind of like, "Oh, it's not possible. We're not big enough yet. Like there will be nobody that wants us." And after they had all left, Nagi came up to me, and he's usually quite quiet, and he was like, "I really want to go to America. You need to do this."
Yeah.
I'll support you. Anything you need, just tell me. And in the end, they all ended up being really on board, and it all worked out. We got together with AUSA, and they were really helpful, and they were willing to give them and us a chance. And I think it really paid off because they did fantastic.
Right. Yeah. It totally did. So yeah, just really looking forward to seeing where they go next. It's really not a band you can really lodge any complaints against, say anything besides good stuff, honestly. Like just that's about all I've got for that. But I'm glad to hear that they're still active in Japan and have got plans and stuff like that. So we'll guys, everybody watching at home, keep it locked to VKH, because we will report you all the new Rides and ReVellion news as it comes out. So,
Hopefully more coming soon.
Yes, for sure.
I'm getting back to work.
Yeah. I think this is a good point. We can go ahead and wrap up the live stream. But thanks so much for being with us, Lori. And thanks Winona for being here, and thanks everyone in the chat. We will see you next week. Bye.
See you later. Bye, guys.
Thank you everybody for listening. Bye.
Thanks for being here, Lori.
No problem. Glad to be here.